Hey, John Gardner once famously said that excellence is doing the ordinary things extraordinarily well. However, when you consider that some of the largest supply chains in the world have been operating for well over a century, it is perhaps unsurprising that they perform sometimes ordinarily. Today on LokadTV, we're delighted to be joined by Baetens, who's going to discuss with us this idea of excellence and what companies can do to instill those values and behaviours in their companies. So Luke, thanks very much for joining us today. Perhaps as a start of 10, you could just sort of tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay, well, thank you first of all to have invited me. It's interesting to discuss this topic. Well, for myself, I started my career at Moebius almost 20 years ago now. And since then I have always worked in consulting for industrial companies, mainly in supply chain, right? But since a few years, I have become more and more involved in operational excellence, and that's where I try to find the link between the two, right? Moebius today is a company that's mainly doing, say, strategy implementation. So we are an implementation company, we are a change agent in different sectors. What is an excellent supply chain, right? Which is probably different for Amazon and Zalando than it is for the regular industrial company, right? I sometimes use the quote that the perfect supply chain in an industrial company is invisible. It's a supply chain you don't see. It's a supply chain you don't hear. You don't hear anybody talking about it. Why? Just because it runs perfectly smoothly. Well, I think that's definitely true. To go even further, what we see is that excellence in general is something that is very difficult to maintain, right? Even if you reach a high level of excellence at some point, in fact, having good performance at some time, at a specific moment in time, is not necessarily a sign of excellence, right? It can also be related to a coincidence or the fact that certain factors come together so that you reach a good performance. What is excellence and we'll talk later probably about the Shingo model, in the way that the Shingo Institute defines excellence is exactly having very, very good performance in a sustainable way. So being capable of keeping that high level of performance, whatever happens, right? And kind of in a resilient way. Sometimes things might go back, right? But then be able to come back to that good performance in a good way.
Okay.
Right? I think an essential point in the method would be to really start from behavior, right? I see a lot of work that is done either by working on processes or working on tools, right? But not actually making the link with behavior. I think the essential thing about starting from behavior is to say, what do I want people to do, right? And behavior is something very simple. It's simple once you know what it is, but it's not so simple to explain. Behavior is what I see you doing, right? It's not what you think, it's not what you feel, it's not what you're convinced of. It is what you do, right? You're looking attentively at me. That's something I can see, right? That's behavior. When you start from those behaviors saying, if I want an excellent supply chain, what do I want people to do? The first thing to be clear about is about the purpose that your company stands for, right? And inform very clearly about what you as a company, as an organization, try to achieve, right? The second thing is to be extremely coherent in that purpose and in the things you put in place.